Another 2 weeks must have gone by.
Indeed it has.
Gosh, it goes quick.
Yeah, I suppose it does. And we've had not bad weather as well, which makes it probably go a little bit quicker.
What do you mean, not bad weather? 1 day of good weather.
Hey, we live in Wellington. We take what we can get.
Okay. Last program was the first to feature the little video clip at the front.
Yeah.
It was off the tail cam.
That was a pretty good shot.
There's more of that on the AirsideTV YouTube channel, by the way. Another 2 clips.
Okay.
Into Christchurch and into Queenstown. But to start the program today, I got a clip especially for you. Have a look at the monitor.
Oh, look at that.
There you go. What do you reckon?
SAA in all its glory.
Yep, that's a South African Airlines 747. Well, they call them Super Bs.
Yeah.
Were they named after rivers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Pitching a bit on the land. Is that when it's coming into that museum?
No, that's at Perth. That's a
Oh, wow,
scheduled
look at
service
that.
coming in from South Africa. And if you look carefully, I know this is frustrating for people on radio, but you can go to YouTube and look. As they're reversing, you'll see a backfire on the outboard engine.
A lot of rudder there too.
Oh yeah, big crosswind that day. I remember that. I was there. But, you know, you just
Well, that's a great shot. Look at that.
you watch for the backfire. A little sheet of flame comes at the back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was 1996 at Perth.
747-200 Super B.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It's a Pratt & Whitney powered one. It's one of the Super Bs. As
I
they used
flew
to
on a
call it.
Super B to New York once.
Yeah, now, were the Super Bs slightly heavier?
I don't know what
There was
the
a
Super...
reason
I don't know.
that they had Super B.
Yeah. I don't know what the
They
Super
might
B
have had
meant.
an extra bit of tankage or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, had the range to come over all the way from South Africa.
It's
there.
true.
What's that, 9 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Look, nothing slows down. Plenty of news in aviation the last 2 weeks. Let's start here at home. Air New Zealand.
Yes. I told you I thought that Singapore Airlines tie-up was a good thing.
A told you so moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, now that Aerolíneas Argentinas is withdrawn from coming across the South Pacific,
Right.
there's a hole in the market. There's also no way to get to South America direct from Singapore and that part of Asia.
Right.
So it looks like Air New Zealand is considering flights from Auckland to South America, tying in with the Singapore Airlines flights.
And using 787s?
And using 787s. They're not sure where they're going to go yet, but it's definitely on the cards.
Okay, so did you predict that? Sort of.
Kinda, yeah.
It's an obvious one given that aircraft type and what's been said in the past.
And the tie-up, because if you're in Singapore and you need to go to Argentina, coming through Auckland is probably going to be easier than going through Los Angeles, a lot shorter.
So does that put New Zealand in a hub position for that part of the world?
Essentially it does.
Between Asia and South America?
The far south of America, yeah.
Wow.
Anything north of Brazil, you'd probably still go through LA.
Mm-hmm.
But Argentina, Chile, those places, yeah, it looks like a good thing.
What about ETOPS?
On the 787, they should be able to swing over enough islands to keep them close enough.
Wasn't the 8, though, restricted in ETOPS?
Well, they got the 9.
Yeah.
Entry into market, it's going to be 180 minutes.
Okay, so that's enough.
That hasn't changed.
That won't go over the pole because that's where those other flights went, Aerolíneas
Yes.
and LAN.
I suspect it's going to have to go further north, so it's going to have to stay within 3 hours of any of those islands that can take a 787-9.
Right. Anyone talking about sort of frequencies?
Not yet, no. And like I said, they haven't really decided where it's going to be yet.
Because you're tapping into a huge market at the Singapore or the Asian end, aren't you?
Yes.
And that's one stop.
Yes. And a huge market in Argentina and potentially parts of Brazil if they don't mind flying down to, if they go to Argentina, flying down from the southern parts of Brazil to Argentina and then on to Singapore via
Well,
Auckland.
you could even have another destination depending on the sort of source traffic, right?
Depends how many people they pick up, yeah.
Virgin Australia is celebrating a decade of international services, so they've been around for a while now.
Yeah.
But also, in Virgin news, they've pulled out of Australia, Virgin Atlantic.
Virgin Atlantic have now stopped flying to Australia.
That's a bit of a surprise. That sort of came out of the blue, didn't it?
Well, I think that's why they got a partner airline down there. On the other side, Virgin Australia's got 10 A330s that they don't really know what to do with. They keep talking about beefing up their international service using A330s.
Go back the other way.
Wouldn't that be ideal to go to Hong Kong and pick up the Virgin Atlantic flight there?
It's still Virgin.
Be a lot cheaper, and if Virgin Australia can offer sort of a Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Australia to Hong Kong service, it might end up getting the Virgin Atlantic Hong Kong service.
You get the feeling, though, that Virgin Atlantic it's waning,
Seems to be contracting a bit.
doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it's not so cool as it used to be.
Well, I've flown them a few times, and I didn't find them that cool.
Right. How long can you carry on with the residual of, Sir Richard Branson and
They do very
Pretty
well.
Women and Red outfits.
They seem to do very well on the North Atlantic route, but that's not surprising given the level of service provided by most of the American carriers on the North Atlantic.
And that's where he started.
Yeah.
Did they ever get to in-flight massages?
No, that was going to be for their A380, which they keep deferring.
Yeah.
They do a lot of flights to South Africa too, apparently, and it's quite a popular way to get down there.
Going back to the story we just had, Virgin Australia can import into this South American thing too.
Yes.
And that's the Australian feed, isn't it?
Yes, and you get your velocity points on an Air New Zealand flight to, let's say, Buenos Aires.
Happy 10th birthday to Virgin Australia, and goodbye Virgin Atlantic. There'll be a few spotters disappointed that the A340-600 is disappearing from Sydney skies.
It's a great-looking plane, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah. And in their livery.
Yes.
Anyway. But they're offloading some of them. Going to your old airline, mate.
Yes, I've heard that as well, that SAA might be picking up second-hand A346s.
Which is surprising because they're real dogs, you know.
Apparently, yes.
That's what everyone says.
But nothing can take off from Johannesburg with a full load, like an A346 or even a 747.
There you go.
Or, of course, an A380. It's 1,700 and something metres.
I wonder what a second-hand one of those, we could look. Probably about, 100 mil, 90 mil, something like that.
An A346?
More than that?
No,
second-hand?
I think honestly, I think you'd probably get it for 30.
You reckon?
Because who wants them?
Well,
the buyer's market.
The engines would be worth that alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as you say, buyer's market.
Yeah, I don't know what else you could use the engines on.
Speaking of aircraft swapping around, Cathay Pacific are retiring 6 747-400 freighters, the early models, keeping their ER ones. And I guess the whole swag of those Series 8s coming along. But I'm just wondering, will the third world start picking up these old freighters?
You know, the costs are still there, even if you buy it cheap. And if you want efficiency in the long run, it's probably better off buying a modern twin-engine freighter.
But if you're an African country with bulk perishable exports,
yeah,
a way to grow is buying cheap old freighters. And no,
but I think most of them are using cargo lux.
Yeah.
With their nice new planes.
Yeah, with all the latest stuff.
Yeah.
So that'd be off to the desert. Goodbye. See you later.
And Ethiopians buying 777 freighters, aren't they?
Well, that's dropped the market.
It's all over, isn't it? You just don't see 747s anymore.
No.
Well, the Emirates juggernaut rolls on, continues to roll on.
Every program there's something.
Yeah, now they're beginning passenger flights into Abuja and Kano in Nigeria.
That's 2 destinations there.
Yes.
And it looks like, because I read the story as well, it looks like the Nigerians are really keen to have them there.
Oh.
You know, it's like a national ceremony to
I mean, that's
acknowledge this deal.
It's a country with a lot of people and a lot of money floating around. I mean, what's Nigeria? 90-odd million people, if not more.
Is that right? So that's huge. I wonder if they'll do A380s. The promotional picture features the A380.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Well, especially dealing with populations the size you're mentioning there. And the growth potential must be huge. And seat mile, and let's talk about that, the A380 and how competitive that is. But if they put more seats in there, that market, it's even cheaper for them.
You can't beat them. No, there's some very interesting statistics out at the moment on the A380 versus the various versions of the 777, the current and the new.
Yeah.
So the A380 at the moment is generally sold with a capacity of about 525.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. One of the reasons is Airbus wants to prove that the plane is viable with as few passengers as possible.
Right.
Because they wanted to compete with the 777.
Yeah. And also, there has to be a certain amount of premium in the product.
Yeah. So at the moment, you get on an A380, you get lots of space.
Yeah.
You get about 10% more space than on anything else out there.
Okay. And that's an economy.
And that's an economy.
All right.
So the seats are big, lots of room.
Okay.
So the question Airbus have got to ask themselves, how are they going to compete with the new 777s as they come online? Mm-hmm. Well, somebody's gone and worked this out, of course.
As you do?
Yep. The 777-9X will cost about $20 million more than a current version A380.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The A380, to use up that 20 million price difference, the difference in seat kilometre costs gives the A380 25,000 hours of flying time before it uses up that 20 million.
Okay, so that's just the differential in price.
It's just the differential in price.
But there's more.
But there's more, because as they improve the A380, so by the time the 777-9X comes on the line, they are anticipating, and there is some thought that the Emirates order for an extra 50 A380s is behind this. They are anticipating a performance improvement package for the A380.
Okay.
Either new engines, new aerodynamics, new whatever.
Yeah.
That will make it 8% more economical than anything else flying.
Right. And that's still with this amount of seatage in it?
No, that's the rub. They're going to add... That calculation's based upon a seating of 630 to 650.
That's not that much more.
No, it isn't. And in space terms, it takes it down to about 97% of what's currently available.
Right. So without too much work, Airbus in a certain part of that market is always going to stay ahead of that new product.
As long as you can keep the plane full and fly it a long way, it's unbeatable.
Yeah, but you've got to do that with the 777-9 too. That's quite a big plane.
And so this just confirms the Emirates model.
Yeah.
You start off with a small plane, 777-300ER.
Into the market,
You get that thing up to 85% across the year capacity. You add a second 777 perhaps for a little while, just to see if that market's sustainable. And the moment it looks like it's going, bang, put an A380 on it every day.
Yeah.
And then use your 777s to open up new markets.
I'm still waiting for the big pushback on Emirates from governments.
Yeah.
They're going to go, wow, this has gone too far. We're going to have to do something.
I mean, if Emirates continues like this and gets more efficient, they're going to be eating national airlines lunch.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's jobs.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It is. It's scary, actually, if you think about it.
We could have had a bit of that business here in Auckland, if they sold half the airport to them.
That would have been very interesting. You wonder if the Qantas tie-up would ever have happened. Well, it wouldn't have.
I think it would have been a different universe.
It would have been completely different.
All right, so watch that space.
Yes, that is going to continue to be very
In the words
interesting.
of Karen Carpenter, we've only just begun.
We've only just begun. I won't sing.
No, please don't. And we can't afford to pay the license fee to
That's true.
use the song, so we'll just try and imagine how it used to
Hum
sound.
amongst yourselves.
There you go. I don't know if this is true or whatever, but it seems to be on quite a reputable website. It's a Swedish website. The headline is "The Truth About the Luxury of Qatar Airways." And they're saying here that it's regarded as one of the most luxurious airlines in the world. They've received numerous awards, but flight attendants have reported quite a sort of draconian and quite sort of dark working environment where they're, almost imprisoned in this sort of Qatar Airways complex where they stay, and their lives are controlled, their passports can be confiscated, their employment contracts are non-enforceable. Basically, while you work for them, you are owned by them. There seem to be sexist nature of the management, especially the top guy. What's his name? Akbar.
Yeah. I've read the article. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah?
Nah. I mean...
How they get away with it?
Well, they get away with it because still a lot of people want to go and work there.
People want to travel on it too.
Yeah.
Mind you, they're appealing to primarily a Middle Eastern market who probably don't care about things like that.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all because, there's been similar stories to this about the Emirates stuff. There was a lot of moaning and complaining about that at some stage.
There are a few comments in this article that mention Emirates, but it's nowhere near as draconian as Qatar.
You speak to anybody who's been and worked in the Gulf in a service industry, so I'm not talking the highly paid executive that goes over to run an advertising company or an engineering company, but people that go over there as school teachers and healthcare professionals and all this type of thing, that they don't come out saying a whole lot of nice things about the place.
They target Filipino and Romanian women for flight attendants.
So people aren't going to complain a lot in the first place. No.
Also, they carry bodies daily back to Nepal of workers who die in the various construction activities because of the heat.
Okay.
Staff are saying it's just part of the everyday cargo. 3 flights a day, and there are 5 or 6 coffins on board every time.
Where do their flights go mainly?
Well, they go back to Nepal. They're taking them back home.
Wow.
They've been into Nepal for a long time. I saw some footage from the 90s there. They had a Qatar 727 parked on the apron there. Point is, it sounds like quite a savage place. They've got the Football World Cup, haven't they?
Yeah.
Is Al Jazeera out of there?
Yeah.
All right, so that's an interesting story. Qatar Airlines, they fly into Australia, don't they?
Yeah, I think they do.
And speaking of Qatar, I see their logos on the latest A350.
Well, yeah, they're the launch customer. So the manufacturer's serial number 002, which will be I think the third A350 to fly.
Yeah.
Which is kind of bizarre.
Why do they do that?
That's painted up in a sort of hybrid Qatari Airbus livery, and it looks quite smart.
It's carrying the branding now, so I mean, what does that tell you? It tells you that Qatar are confident enough to have their logo on it. It's not going to end up as a piece of burnt fiberglass in the forest somewhere.
No, that test program seems to be going very well, doesn't it?
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of fiberglass, China Southern Airlines charter flight into Christchurch, the week just passed.
Yeah. Looked great as well, didn't it?
Yeah. 230 on board, I think, and talk of making this permanent scheduled flight Guangzhou to Christchurch. It would be a safe place for the Chinese to send their tourists. They're not going to run off and become subversive in Christchurch, are they?
No.
And plot to overthrow the mono-party state.
No, perhaps Christchurch wouldn't be a bad place.
No, nice and safe.
But I mean, I think they're jumping ahead of themselves with a regular flight, because I don't think there's many Chinese people going to want to come down in the sort of shoulder seasons. It'll be high summer and perhaps skiing.
Well, it's a great place to get married. That's why the Japanese used to come here in a lot of numbers, I believe, back in, say, 80s, early 90s.
I just think it'll be charter flights for a while.
You reckon?
Yeah. Not a bad thing.
Yeah. One thing that I was amazed to read about China Southern is how big they are. 570 aircraft.
Massive.
91.8 million passengers moved in 2013.
Yeah.
Huge, isn't it?
It is big. They fly A300 still as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
The 600 series.
I think they send the A330-200s down to Auckland, or is it now the Dreamliner? The Dreamliner.
The Dreamliner.
Yeah, I think it's the Dreamliner now. But 570 aircraft.
Did you read that Dreamliner article saying that production inefficiencies at Charleston is meaning that Boeing won't meet their target of 10 planes per month?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, the things are getting ugly between Seattle and Charleston.
I think they should drop the Dreamliner name. It's just such a dumb name in the face of all of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone knows it's not been a dream.
No, far from it. Another program and another Lyon Air accident in Indonesia.
Yeah, now we had one a few programs ago.
Oh, yes, but
that was at Bali.
Yeah, they're almost,
What have they done this time?
They came in rather hard in a 737-900. Apparently they came in at 4G. They hit the tarmac at 4G.
Oh, gosh.
Bent the fuselage.
So it's a write-off?
Well, they're still...
Probably.
It bent the fuselage, broke bits of the wheels off, cracked some of the engine cowl.
Oh, dear.
They didn't report it.
They didn't
report it to ACC. As a result, they didn't check the runway. A Garuda Indonesia plane came down after it. That broke off bits of its engine because some of the debris from the Lyon Air plane went into it.
Oh, man, it just keeps getting worse.
And it's pretty bad. There were a number of injuries, broken bones. There was a pregnant woman on board, and things didn't go well.
Oh, my
golly,
golly.
for her.
Okay.
That's pretty sad. Yes, the plane's bent just after the wing, and if confirmed, if it was 4G, basically the plane will not be repaired.
It's a very long fuselage to take a hit.
Yes.
Any word on what they did? It obviously happened on landing, but
tail strike came and landed on the tail.
Oh, God.
Landed on the tail and smashed the front end down. And
the tail, there's so much tail out there.
Yeah.
And we talked about the speeds last time.
Yeah, quite high landing speeds.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and very flat trajectory. You've got to come in very flat and very fast.
Does it have the tail protection on that one? Probably not. The tail strike protection.
It's got a bumper.
Yeah, but you know how the 777
No,
has
it doesn't have automatic. No,
back there.
Apparently not.
Okay. Speaking of accidents, and this is, I guess, relevant to us because we have one of these aircraft operating in this part of the world, and that is the Chinese. What is it? The MA60 turboprop airliner.
Yeah.
One's crashed. I can't pronounce the name of the place it crashed in. It's too much. Nose wheel collapse. But, I mean, these things look solid as a rock. The reason I mention it is because I think, is it Tonga, one of these things?
Tonga flies in Tonga? Yeah, Tonga flies one.
And didn't the Chinese give it to them?
Probably. I don't know the details of it.
They gave it to them.
Aid.
And we had a bit of a hissy fit and said, well, we wouldn't certify, it couldn't be certified here, we wouldn't recommend our tourists to fly on it. I guess, they wanted a New Zealand operator or something.
But there's a fair few flying around the world. They don't seem to be falling out the sky that often.
They look Russian.
Yes, it's basically a development of the Antonovs.
Yeah, it looks like it's a stretch and
and Western engines, Western avionics, and a longer fuselage.
Okay.
But it's basically a modernized version, heavily modified version of an Antonov 24.
Ah. Yeah, I thought it looked sort of familiar. Speaking of accidents, do you remember that A310 crash a few years ago, Yemenia Airlines?
Yep.
Yemenia Flight 626, it took off from Sanaa, which I think is the capital of Yemen.
Yemen, yeah.
Off to Moroni in the Comoros Islands, crashed in the morning. It was at night on approach to Prince Said Ibrahim International Airport there, killing all but one of the 153 passengers on board. 12-year-old found clinging to the wreckage.
Poor kid.
The accident report has finally come out. Why does it take so many years for these reports to come out?
Well, they've got to be thorough.
You're sitting around for years waiting for this stuff, and in the meantime, people could be making the same mistake. But anyway, essentially, they're coming into this airport on the ILS. They bail out of the approach, set the altimeter to 0.
Yeah.
Auto throttle thinks it's on the ground.
It keeps pulling the throttle back because it's obviously...
Each time they put the power up and pull the throttle back.
All right.
It's at night, the diversion is over water.
So instead of looking out the window or looking at the instruments, they're fighting the throttle.
They got down to 100 feet.
Oh, dear.
Before they pulled up again, and it was all over the place. Roller coaster ride. Not a single comment from the co-pilot on the cockpit voice recorder. ATC completely unaware. They're out there in the night, almost crashing into the sea.
Yeah.
Every time he pulls the nose up, the power goes off, not on.
Yeah.
And it just falls out of the sky.
I mean, obviously it's difficult to put yourself in their situation, but surely if the plane's not responding the way you think it is, wouldn't you just turn everything off and manually go up as high as you could while you thought about it?
They think they're in an automated or an auto throttle situation.
Yeah.
Even though it keeps pulling back, they won't disconnect it and manually operate it. They'll keep looking at it to see.
Yeah, why isn't it doing what I want?
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Completely unnecessary. But here's the thing. The contract to train these aircrew for Yemenia Airlines was with Airbus.
Well, one shouldn't say this, but one will. Given the record of French Air France pilots, would you want French pilots training your...
447, say no more.
Yeah.
Obviously that mindset, and we've moved on a bit here because this happened back, in 2009. But this whole snookered by automation.
Yes.
The way the brain really sometimes fails to grasp.
And that breakdown in cockpit communication. And
there was none.
That poor Air France flight coming out of Brazil, 447.
Yeah.
In as much as there was too little communication on the cockpit. Yeah. Very similar. Because that crash could also have been averted.
Simply
by all accounts.
Averted, yeah.
Yes. So what we're saying is, if you're nervous of flying, don't be worried about the plane. Be worried about the guy sitting up front.
Totally.
Yeah.
Plane was fine.
Yeah. Well,
it was working beautifully.
Yeah.
Until it arrived at the ground.
Yeah, at the wrong place.
Yeah. Last program we talked about that Fokker regional jet, the VFW.
Yeah.
And how that was sort of like the original regional jet.
Yeah, it was.
1962 they thought of that.
Yeah.
A long time ago. Let's talk about another aircraft in this program. Give me an aircraft.
All right. Let's do something old, something big, something American.
I like it.
The McDonnell F-101.
The Voodoo. Ah, yes. Probably the best looking fighter plane ever made. Wouldn't you say?
Just about anything from the 50s or 60s, from the Yanks or the Pommers, was just great.
This is so well balanced in its design.
Big.
And big.
I always like planes with a T-tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a forerunner to the F4, really?
And you can kind of see it, the way the tail, the jet pipes are
at the
kind
rear.
of exposed.
Because there's a twin.
Yeah.
And it's got a very similar forward nose as well.
Yeah.
In 1957 it first flew. McDonnell aircraft, I think they were St. Louis based, weren't they?
Yes.
Also flew for the Canadian Royal Canadian Air Force. I had a look over one at the Pima County Air Museum in Tucson, Arizona. They are big.
They're big.
You can fit right underneath it.
No, the Yanks built them big back in those days. They were big, and you think about how big, because this is a carrier-based plane.
Yeah.
You think about how big the carriers weren't in those days.
That's right.
And they were flogging these things down. I mean, so it weighed 23 tons.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're landing that on a carrier, and these were small carriers. And, of course, they were relatively swept wing, and they didn't really have all the aerodynamic aids that later planes had, so they must have come in pretty quick.
Yeah, they would have.
Yeah?
Very small wing, if you look at it.
Yes. No, they were big, and they were fast, and they were heavy, and they must have been a real handful. And
it was a sort of a gull shape, too, the wing. Yeah, real handful.
Yeah.
Afterburning turbojets, 11,990 pound thrust, 16,900 with the afterburner, with the burner
I'll tell you what, you'd have earned your day's pay flying one of those things.
Yeah. Mach 1.72.
So fast.
1,500 mile range though. Not you burn through that pretty quick.
It was 20 meters. It was over 20 meters long.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that was 1957. Hard to believe.
Great looking planes.
They used them in the Vietnam War.
I think they were photo reconnaissance by that stage. They fitted them with cameras.
It's just the look of it, though, isn't it? It's the hottest looking thing around. So quite a few built.
Yes, 807.
Right.
I mean, it just amazes me as well how many types of plane they'd buy back in those days, and how many of them they'd buy.
Yeah.
Because 807, that's a lot of planes.
Well, some went to Canada, but
Yeah.
by far the most. It doesn't look like any are flying anymore.
Well, privately you couldn't afford to because they would drink fuel.
Yeah.
Anything from those days, maintenance would have been a real nightmare because they'd have required all special tools and special fittings. I mean, nothing would have been off the shelf.
And those engines would have tolerated very high hours.
No, and they'd have to wrung them out. So by the time they finished flying them, they're probably all ready for scrap.
Yeah, about 24 variants. Everything from fighters right through to, as you said, photo reconnaissance. Last model was the 101H reconnaissance, 32 build. Well, converted. There you go. The F101, our aircraft of the day. Now, do we have any gadgets that we can talk about? Interesting story in the news about iPads in schools. There's a school out there. I think they're in the Waikato.
Yeah, they're
Maybe
giving all their
not.
kids. They're giving all their kids iPads.
Yeah,
eh?
about time. That's what needs to happen.
Yes.
But they're saying that for the number of school kids in this little country, to give them all an iPad is about 250 mil.
Really?
Yeah. 470,000 kids, I think.
Or maybe they should give them Android tablets.
Well, why do they have to be Apple?
Because Apple's pretty good at that
But
type of
they'd
thing.
do a deal, or don't they do deals?
I reckon.
You'd do a deal for that,
The
wouldn't you?
Education Authority went to them. They'd do
Yeah.
a deal.
Yeah.
3%, 5%.
They did fundraising, and they bought it for them, for the minis.
Yeah.
$400 each.
It's amazing how the tablets have changed things, isn't it? You know, it used to be every kid wanted a laptop. No, my kids aren't interested in a laptop.
Does Flight Sim work on these things?
Not really.
Not interested?
Must be said, when it comes to gaming, serious gaming, they do hook up the PC.
Yeah. Still PCs.
Still PCs. Well, they had the console, and they didn't like it. They got rid of the console. They prefer their gaming on PCs. Mouse and keyboard.
Right.
Yeah.
Something about that.
I think with Call of Duty, I think they prefer mouse and keyboard.
.com, he'd have the real powerful one, wouldn't he?
Yeah, you would.
What's his one?
He's a Call of Duty guy.
Oh, he's Call of Duty, is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a champion, isn't he?
Apparently he's pretty good.
Yeah, you have to put the hours in for that.
You do.
Seriously.
Well, it's training, isn't it?
He's had plenty of time on his hands.
You must do.
Well,
Plenty of
lately.
money, plenty of time.
If he gets extradited, it'll be part of the plea bargain. You've got to give me access to a computer I can play the game. All right, so there goes another program. And for those who want to watch, they can go and have a look at that clip on YouTube at the front of our YouTube version.
Yeah, and the radio program will be on iTunes. And if you don't have iTunes, you can look for us on Podbean.
So that's all for this fortnight. We'll be back again
In a fortnight.
another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Paul Brennan, Wellington, and
Martin Oakes, Wellington.